I'm not sure that all of the Carolina Panthers fans overall are on the same page when it comes to winning. We are now hyping up Dave Canales, which, of course, I picked him on December 9th of 2023, more than a month before he was hired. Dave Canales is also the focus of my 9-part miniseries. So, needless to say, I've been doing a lot of deep diving on Dave Canales since before he was even on a lot of your guys' radar. And I'm telling you, he has what it takes, but...
No buts.
Does the personnel and does Dan Morgan have what it takes to take this team from 2 wins to hopefully a Super Bowl winner one day? That is the big question if you're a Carolina Panthers fan, and that's going to be the one that we are asking today. Is Dave Canales right for Dave Morgan, and is Dan Morgan the right person for Dave Canales? My name is Nick. This is Roll Coverage right here. Let's go.
Hey, I thought it was all over.
Nope. They roll coverage.
So, obviously, I promised you is Dan Morgan good enough for Dave Canales and vice versa comparison. But there's a few places that I want to go with this. First of which is, of course, Dave Canales. Now, Dave Canales obviously has a pretty decent, I'll call it rap sheet or experience sheet of places that he has been, of course, under the tutelage of mainly the big guy, Mr. Pete Carrol. Now, obviously, Pete is known as being overly positive. We've heard a lot of stories recently of Russell Okung, if you haven't heard that.
Russell Okung was a first-round draft pick out of, I believe, Boise State for the Broncos. Ended up finishing his career with the Seahawks, or at least playing part of his career with the Seahawks. And Russell Okung tweeted this out yesterday, and I was fascinated. I'm going to read you the whole thing. It's 2 paragraphs long. I think you'll get why. This is from Russell Okung. When I played with the Seahawks, there was a coach whose optimism was painful. Always writing notes. Knew Pete Carroll's culture like the back of his hand. Even set up practice dummies perfectly on the field. Rarely saw him have a bad day. Turns out relentless positivity is a superpower. My teammates ridiculed him as a company man for meticulously straightening practice dummies. This coach knew every detail mattered to Pete Carroll. While others kicked dummies in jest, he aligned them perfectly. He saw the connection between small actions and overall culture. An older vet defended him. He's not a company man. He just understands how things work. Lesson: it's not about blind loyalty. It's about understanding the bigger picture. Those small things would create a future for him. Funny, he's now the head coach of an NFL team.
And also from Baker Mayfield, basically saying that Dave is a optimist bully.
He's very relatable, smart guy. He took our receivers coach from Tampa with him to be the OC, Brad Idzik. Really, really good football mind. And I just think like those 2 guys together, like around Bryce, is gonna be good for him. But Dave's got the definition of an optimist bully. Like it could be the worst day ever. Everything could be going wrong, and he's sitting there. He's like, "Guys, I got the next play," and like he's got a big old smile on his face, and you're like, "This guy's full of shit."
Yeah.
But no, that's literally who he is, day in and day out, and like it's honestly refreshing, especially in that industry. It's like coaches are always negative, like picking apart everything, but he's complete opposite.
Yeah.
But I want to ask you a question. Wasn't that the last coach's deal? I mean, I know nobody has really called Frank Reich overjoyed or anything like that, or really described him as that. But you know what they did describe him as? One of the nicest people in the league. And again, an offensive-focused guy. Of course, leaning more towards the old-school way of doing it, as Dave Canales is bringing in more of that, motion, option, and really giving Bryce, hopefully, a lot of extra options in his tool bag. But I cannot give Dave Canales a big thumbs up when it comes to charisma, ability to explain the game, experience, or anything like that, because he is a younger version, a more exuberant version, I will give you that, of our previous coach, Frank Reich, the guy that everybody wanted out of the building immediately. Remember when he would go up to the press conferences, and in fact, if you were here with me, Nick, at Roll Coverage, we were doing the breakdowns where he was coming out there and he was being like, hey, we're going to make progress here, we're going to do that. But of course, you could see the black cloud over his head, and everybody just kind of gave Frank the business when it came time to it, ignoring the fact that, of course, David Tepper was meddling behind the scenes. There was the whole Hunger Games article, thanks to Diana Rossini and Joe Person. Shout out to them. If you haven't read the article, please make sure you do over on The Athletic. Dave Canales doesn't have that. Dave Canales hopefully has a better GM, but his better GM was the previous GM, the guy who I could not stand, including that I started a petition to get rid of him. We'll put it that way. That's how much I hated him. And I actively promoted it as much as I could. Like, the fact that we are believing in a Fitterer coaching tree, I guess. There's not really a front office tree that I can find for a lot of these players, or I'm sorry, front office guys. So I can't be like, oh, Dan Morgan's been here, here, and here. Of course, he's in Seattle with Pete Carrol, so he's got a lot of comparisons to him. So that is where we're going to come in and add a little bit of extra flavor, okay? First, I'm going to give you a little bit of snippet from ProFootballHistory.com. Make sure you go check them out. Pete Carrol coaching tree. Before he was a head coach, Carroll served as an assistant coach for Kay Stevenson, Bud Grant, Jerry Burns, Bruce Coslett, and George Seifert. During this time, he coached for 4 years for Jerry Burns and Bruce Coslett. During this time as head coach, 3 assistant coaches, Dan Quinn, Gus Bradley, and Robert Saleh on his coaching staff, were hired as head coaches across the league. This is not updated. This says his head coaching tree, or his coaching tree, has combined for a record of 75 and 123 in the regular season. The current math is 425 to 498 in one tie, 20 and 16 in the playoff. That's Saleh, Gus Bradley, and Dan Quinn. Obviously, Canales has not coached officially as a head coach yet, so that's where it's at. If that's the case, then that's a pretty bad coaching tree, no offense. I don't think that the Pete Carroll way is as easily replicatable as it was in Seattle, and I think we're going to see that now. Robert Saleh is a great defensive mind, and has been able to do a lot with the Jets. Dan Quinn, I think, is going to be able to turn the Commanders' defense around quite a bit. But to say that Saleh, Bradley, and Quinn, and now Canales are 4 top-flight head coaching candidates, that's not the case. Teams are just kind of going through the retreads. Obviously not with Dave, Gus Bradley, Quinn, and everybody like that. So I don't know if I believe in that the Pete Carroll system is transferable, because we haven't seen anybody do it at the highest level. Now, obviously, I think it was it Dan Quinn? I think Dan Quinn at one point had like 11 playoff wins or something like that. So that's solid, but Dan Quinn's been going around a long time, and if this team would have hired Dan Quinn, you guys wouldn't have been happy as Panthers fans. So remember that. Now, obviously, if we do the same comparison that I was doing before to the previous regime, that previous regime had a ton of experience and all this other stuff, but nobody really ever won at the highest level. Frank Reich was obviously gone after a few games, and that's not what I want to have here. But I think part of the problem is Dan Morgan. Now, there's a lot of opportunities when it comes to GMs, and the one place I feel like we really settled, okay? If you are a diehard Panthers fan, you would remember this clip right here.
You know, the way he throws the ball, the way he's a point guard, how you can use the different players in the field, how you might not have to have as many elite receivers because he's the point guard, right? So he distributes the ball to people with routes. So you can save some money there. You know, we believe we can save money other places because of him and put that money into the defensive side of the ball.
Okay, that is the thought process of David Tepper. Where can I skimp out on money and do all that other stuff? So maybe that is why Dan Morgan is there, because he could have thrown $20 million at Adam Peters, the Commanders GM, and we could have been able to secure a lot better options. Imagine him with Brandt, Tilis, we would be golden for a decade. But we decided to go with Dan Morgan, and we're really gambling on a lot of our picks. I know you guys don't really think that I know what I'm talking about, and hey, some days I don't even think I know what I'm talking about. But that's a part of sports, man. We all have our opinions until it gets out there on the field and is actually executed. Now, I can't really say that the Commanders winning 7 games is absolutely out of left field. I think it would be possible. A lot of these games are going to come down to field goals and stuff like that, which whether or not Bryce Young can execute. That's going to be a tough one. I'm going to be honest. It's going to be a tough one to sell me on. But Dave has a really great opportunity now with this year to start a foundation moving forwards. I do believe, though, he needs 6 wins to at least not get another coach sniffing around. I don't think he'll be replaced. At least I hope he's not replaced. But David Tepper is an enigma at best, so we're not really sure what's going to happen. Now, to Dan Morgan can be building this program for a long time. We have seen guys that he drafted, the main one being Trevin Wallace, the guy that he saw himself in, essentially, and hopefully he, kind of fleshes out into being that guy. But at the same time, Chow Smith-Wade, Jonathan Brooks coming off an ACL injury, when we know the history of running backs coming off ACL injuries, there's only a few guys that really shined above expectations. I like Jatavian Sanders, but where we picked him was an interesting one. I'm not a big fan of the Xavier pick, but I understand the pick, especially with the size. I just need you guys to stop pretending that he's 6'3" or 6'4". He's 6'1", period. He's not 6'2", almost 6'2". He's 6'1". Okay? We don't have the Leaning Towers out there. We got essentially a Debo clone that we're hoping is able to have the longevity Debo has been able to have, given his injuries and everything like that. But overall, Dan really needs to hit in this draft. If XL, if Jatavian, if Jonathan Brooks, Chow, or any of these guys, or the majority of these guys are bust, Dan Morgan needs to either elevate or he needs to be replaced. I'm not saying now. We are not really sure where these guys are going to go. Trevin Wallace could be the next Luke Kuechly. I doubt it, but it's possible. I want to know your thoughts, though. Like, do you think it's a situation where Dan Morgan is going to be able to outdraft the problems and cover over the problems of Dave Canales to keep him there? Or is it going to be the other way around, and that soon we're going to come back and then see that Giants Hard Knocks clip where Joe Shane is trying to twist Dan Morgan for a little bit more and is able to basically shut it down and get out with the deal that he wanted? If Dan Morgan's not there in a year, that will be a huge win for Joe Shane, regardless of the fact that they're friends. And on top of that, it'll be a massive black eye on the record of Dan Morgan, especially coming off of, again, the ties to Fitterer. So I'm not really sure where we are. Like I said, I'd like to see 6+ wins, but I'm bracing myself for a 3-4 win season. Regardless, if you haven't checked out the channel, make sure you do. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you guys are here on the regular. I'm starting to do more interviews, and you're going to see more shorts from those interviews in your feed. So make sure you like them, watch them, and share them to anybody you can. My name is Nick. This is Roll Coverage, a place where it's sports for sports' sake. Have a great rest of the day. Peace.